To say the least, there are so many families in this city that have suffered during the year 2020. So many families, so many kids who have gone through so much, and the trauma, the pain, the challenges, they still are having such a huge impact on our families and children. And the city of New York believes it's our responsibility to help those families, to help those kids. We believe that's what we're here for as public servants, to actually alleviate people's suffering and help them move forward. That's what the city believes. But the federal government is doing something very, very different. Just at the moment when we need help the most, just at the moment where our families are suffering the most, you would think this would be when the federal government would offer a helping hand the most. Remember Franklin Delano Roosevelt, our own New Yorker, the New Deal, when people were having the toughest time, the federal government stepped up, helped in unimaginable ways, helped people get out of that crisis. You want to believe your federal government is going to do the right thing for you and really try in every way to help us in everything we do for everyday New Yorkers. But we've experienced just the opposite. And I'm not just talking about the beginning of this crisis when there wasn't enough testing or when we couldn't get PPE from the federal government or any other things that we could go over. I'm talking about the recent actions of the Trump administration to literally cut off funding that would help us provide health care, that would help us keep people safe. A totally political action that would actually undermine the lives of New Yorkers just when they need help the most. What we've seen from President Trump threatening funding for New York City and other cities, it's morally wrong, it's legally unacceptable, it's unconstitutional, and we're going to fight it. We've seen this not only directed at New York City, but at other cities that are trying to help their people, Seattle and Portland, that are trying to do the work of bringing their cities out of this crisis, also being threatened with their funding being taken away by the federal government. So here's the bottom line. I said weeks ago, if the Trump administration persisted in trying to illegally take away funding from New York City, we would take them to court, and we will beat them in court. And here to tell you what we are doing in coordination with our sister cities, the man who will lead the way, lead the charge with his team at the law department, our corporation counsel, Jim Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. In a couple of hours in Seattle, we will file a complaint that is pushing back on and seeks a court's judgment on the Trump administration's decisions to withhold fundings from cities that they have, without cause and without law, determined to be anarchist cities. We're bringing this action because they have taken concrete steps. They've actually taken this anarchist designation and started to include it in applications for federal grants. We're not going to wait for them to include it in more. We're moving now. There are three reasons why this is wrong. First off, they're stepping way over their bounds. Congress controls the power of the purse, not the Trump administration, and yet they're stepping into the congressional space. Second, they're moving in a way that is arbitrary and capricious. There is no basis in law, there is no basis in fact for this anarchist determination, and yet they're going to use it to determine who does and who does not get federal funding. And third, it violates federalism because it steps into a space, or at least they're trying to step into a space that is uniquely for the cities to decide. How we decide to police our streets, how we decide to spend our funds. And because those don't line up with what this administration believes that it should do, that is the Trump administration, they're deciding to withhold funds. And for New York, the amounts that potentially are at risk could exceed $12 billion. We will see them in court. The papers will be filed in Seattle later on today. In our western sister cities, we have seen the deployment of federal troops in battle dress uniforms, and that is the appropriate place for this suit to get started. And we will be with them all along the way. We expect to prevail in court. We expect to see victory. But there is going to be no victory unless we push the fight. And that's what we're starting today.